He gambled away all their savings on their honeymoon, but what she discovered afterward was even worse. From rock bottom, this is a true story. The names and some events have been changed to protect the identity of those involved. You are listening to From Rock Bottom. Subscribe to the channel and keep respect in the comments. Do you have an inspiring story of overcoming challenges? Send it to us by email.
If someone told me that I'd be broke, barefoot, and heartbroken on my honeymoon, I'd say they were being dramatic. But what happened to me wasn't just dramatic. It was devastating. I thought I had married the love of my life, a man I trusted with everything, my heart, my dreams, my savings. But on our second night in Vegas, he did something that shattered everything. And no, I'm not talking about cheating, though honestly, I wish it had been that simple. He gambled away every single cent we had, our savings, our future, all gone. And the worst part? That wasn't even the biggest betrayal. But let me start from the beginning, because trust me, you need to hear the whole story to understand how I ended up alone, crying on a casino floor at 4 a.m. on my honeymoon. And yeah, it gets worse. How, for years, I thought I was living a love story. Well, we met in 2006. I was 23. He was 25. I still remember the exact night, one of those casual weekend things, a barbecue at a friend's place. Beers, music, way too many people crammed into a small backyard. And there he was, standing by the cooler, laughing too loud and talking to everyone like he'd known them for years. Let's call him Liam. And if I'm being honest, I noticed him before he noticed me. He was one of those guys that just filled a room. Not in an arrogant way, more like magnetic. People gravitated toward him. He had that natural charm, the kind that made you feel special when he talked to you. We ended up next to each other by the chips and salsa. He made a dumb joke about double dipping and I laughed. We talked for a few minutes, then a few hours. That was it. From the beginning, he was all in. He was sweet. He listened. He made me laugh until my stomach hurt. He showed up with flowers, wrote little notes, remembered my favorite candy bar. The kind of guy who texts, "Let me know when you get home safe," even if it's just across town. And more than that, we had fun together. We had mutual friends, so weekends were always something. Game nights, bar crawls, beach trips, stupid parties where someone always broke something. We were young. We were in love. And honestly, we were that couple that people said, "God, you two are perfect together." I used to love hearing that. We weren't flashy. We were solid, easy, real. We laughed a lot, ate terrible takeout, made frozen margaritas in the blender, watched dumb movies, danced in the living room. It felt normal and safe. We moved in together after 2 years. Nothing fancy, a little one-bedroom with squeaky floors and a shower that never worked right. He used to joke that we were poor, but sexy. I used to laugh and say we were poor, but happy. And we really were. We didn't have much, but it didn't matter. He was attentive, affectionate, always up for anything. He'd suggest we take a walk at midnight, just to get ice cream. Or that we drive to the coast at sunrise. Just because. I loved that about him. He was spontaneous, outgoing, always the one making people laugh at dinner parties. I was a little more reserved, the remember your keys, we need to pay rent on Thursday kind of person. But somehow, it worked. People said we balanced each other out. And maybe we did. At least back then. After 2 years, we talked about marriage a lot, but never rushed it. Life kept happening. Jobs changed. Apartments changed. There were some tough months, like when he got laid off and we had to survive on my paycheck. But we managed. Or, I thought we managed. Because Liam always knew how to make things feel okay, even when they weren't. He had this way of distracting me, of turning everything into a joke or a hug, or a story about something funny that happened that day. And I fell for it, every time. We finally got engaged in 2009, 3 years after we met. It wasn't some grand, romantic gesture, just the two of us, sitting on our couch in pajamas, eating takeout pad thai, when he pulled out a ring and said, "I don't want to do this life with anyone else." And I said yes before he even finished the sentence. I didn't care about the ring, or the wedding. What mattered was him, us, everything we'd been through. We planned a small ceremony, just family and a few close friends. Simple, lovely, perfect. But the one thing I really wanted, the one thing I dreamed about was the honeymoon. We had talked about it for months. Not Paris, not Bali, not some island retreat. Nope. Vegas. Because we loved the chaos, the shows, the neon lights. We had this idea that Vegas would be our place, loud and bright and over the top. Just like us, back in the beginning. He was totally on board. Said he couldn't wait. Said it would be legendary. Yeah, it was legendary, all right. Just not in the way I imagined. I spent months planning it. Booked a suite at one of the nicer hotels. Found the best shows, dinner reservations, helicopter tour over the Strip, all of it. And I paid for it. Most of it, anyway. He said things were tight on his end. Some freelance clients hadn't paid yet. The usual excuses. But he promised he'd take care of other stuff once we got there. Said he'd surprise me. Said he had a little Vegas magic planned. God, I was so naive. We flew out the morning after the wedding. I wore a white hoodie that said "Wife Life." He teased me about it. We were giddy, stupid happy, laughing at everything. I still have selfies from the airport. I can't even look at them now. The hotel room was gorgeous. Big, dramatic, over the top, just like I wanted. Champagne waiting in the room. Rose petals on the bed. He kissed me like we were back to the first week we met. We went out that first night dinner. Drinks. Walked through the Strip holding hands. It was perfect. He said, "This is just the beginning." And I believed him. But it wasn't the beginning. It was the beginning of the end. When we got back to the hotel, I was exhausted. All that wedding adrenaline had crashed hard. He said he was going to check out the casino downstairs, just for a bit. Said he'd be back in 10 minutes. I kissed him goodnight, slipped into that soft white robe, and passed out with the TV on. I woke up hours later. Alone. Room dark. TV flashing colors into an empty space beside me. I checked my phone. 3:42 a.m. I sat up. Called him. Straight to voicemail. I texted. Nothing. I waited. 10 minutes. 15. 20. Something felt wrong. Really wrong. I threw on jeans, grabbed my hotel key, and went downstairs barefoot. And what I saw when I found him is something I will never forget. Ever. But that wasn't even the worst part. It's what came after. You know what really kills me? It's not just that he lost the money. It's that he lost what that money represented. Because that wasn't just cash. That was our future. That was our beginning. We hadn't bought a house yet. Hell, we didn't even have a decent mattress. The one we slept on had this dip in the middle that made us roll into each other whether we wanted to or not. That money was supposed to be a start. Not a we're rich now kind of start. No, we were never delusional. But it was enough for a little stability. A security net. A tiny bit of breathing room. You know, like maybe finally being able to get a car that didn't squeal every time you turned left. Or a fridge that didn't leak. Nothing fancy. Just basic comfort. And the way we saved it? God. The way we worked for it? That's what makes it all hurt so much more. We started saving maybe 2 years before the wedding. At first, it was slow. Like a few bucks here and there. We kept this dumb little mason jar on the kitchen counter and called it the life jar. Whenever we skipped something like takeout or drinks with friends, we'd put the money we would have spent in that jar. It was kind of cute at first. Felt like a game. We'd say stuff like, "Hey, want to stay in and do a Netflix and popcorn night? Sure, that's like $20 for the jar. Or, let's cook tonight instead of ordering. That's another 40. And little by little, it added up. We kept each other accountable, celebrated small milestones. $100. High five and a toast. $1,000? We bought a little notebook and started tracking everything properly. Eventually, the mason jar turned into a savings account. But it still felt like ours, like we built it. And even though we said it was our money, let's be honest, most of it was mine. I was the one picking up extra shifts, the one budgeting every grocery list, the one saying no to concerts and brunch and little treat-yourself days. He contributed, sure, but it was mostly with charm and optimism and promises of, we'll figure it out. I figured it out. I did. I stretched everything, saved every receipt, compared prices for toilet paper like I was trading stocks. I made things work. I made us work. And I never complained. Because I believed in the plan. The plan was to get married, go on this dream honeymoon, and come back ready to build something real. A home. A family. A life that didn't feel like survival every single month. It was supposed to be the start of everything. That night, when I woke up and realized he wasn't in bed, I wasn't immediately panicked. I figured maybe he went to get snacks or just needed air or something. But when he didn't answer his phone, when I saw that it had been hours, when I realized he wasn't just out, he was gone, that's when my stomach dropped. I threw on the first pair of jeans I found, slipped on my flip-flops, grabbed the keycard and ran downstairs. The casino was still buzzing. Of course it was. It's Vegas. It never sleeps. Lights flashing, music blaring, bells ringing. It felt like walking into a different planet. I scanned the room like I was looking for a missing person, because that's what it felt like. He wasn't my Liam anymore. He was someone I needed to find, to rescue, like something bad had happened. And then I saw him. He was hunched over a roulette table, eyes locked, mouth tight, hands shaking. He didn't look happy. He didn't even look alive. He looked possessed. There were chips everywhere, empty drink glasses. His tie was off, shirt untucked, hair sweaty and stuck to his forehead. he didn't see me at first. I stood there for a solid minute, maybe more, frozen, watching him throw another handful of chips onto the table, muttering something under his breath. The wheel spun. He lost. Again. I stepped closer. Liam? Nothing. Liam! He turned. And the look on his face? I'll never forget it. He looked like a kid caught with his hand in the cookie jar, except the jar was on fire, and the house was burning down around him. I asked him what the hell he was doing. He said, "I can fix it." I said, "Fix what?" And that's when he told me. He had already spent everything in our joint account. Everything. The honeymoon fund, the life jar money, my savings, all of it. Gone. He said he just wanted to double it, make the trip even better, give us a little extra for when we got home. But then he lost, and then he tried to win it back, and then he lost again, and again, and again. By the time I found him, he had maxed out the credit card and tried to pull a cash advance from our emergency card. I didn't even know he had access to that one. I stood there, listening to him whisper excuses, trying to explain it like it was some bad dream he could wake up from. And I felt like the floor opened under me. My ears were ringing. I couldn't breathe right. People were looking. The dealer was frowning at us. I grabbed his arm and pulled him away from the table. I didn't even know where I was going, just needed to get away from the noise, the lights, the fake smiles of strangers pulling levers and sipping cocktails. We ended up by the bathrooms, near a slot machine that smelled like old fries and cheap perfume. I asked him again, "How much?" He looked down. All of it. It didn't register at first. I thought maybe he meant like a couple $100, or maybe he was exaggerating. So I pulled out my phone, opened the banking app. And there it was. Balance. $3.42. $3.42. That was everything we had left. I sat down on the floor. Right there, in that disgusting hallway, still wearing my honeymoon robe and flip-flops, mascara probably down to my chest, and I just cried. People walked past me. Some stared. One woman said, "You okay, honey?" I couldn't even answer. Then security came over. One of them knelt down and asked if I needed an ambulance. And honestly, I didn't know what to say. Because how do you explain that you're not physically hurt, but you're still bleeding inside? I looked at Liam, and I swear to you, he looked scared. Not sorry, not devastated, not broken. Scared. And I knew, in that moment, he wasn't scared because he hurt me. He was scared because he got caught. But it didn't last, because, no, what happens in Vegas doesn't stay in Vegas. I wish it did. I wish I could have left it all there. The shame, the heartbreak, the disaster of that night. But some things, they follow you home. Some things attach to your skin, your memories, your entire body like smoke. And his betrayal? It clung to me. But it wasn't just what he did that broke me. It was who he became the moment I called it out. We got back to the hotel room after that awful scene in the casino. I didn't say a word in the elevator. I couldn't. I felt like my voice was trapped somewhere inside my ribs, like I'd swallowed glass. He kept pacing beside me, running his hands through his hair, muttering things like, "I messed up, and it got out of hand, and you weren't supposed to find me like that." Like that was the problem. We walked into the room, He kicked off his shoes, poured himself a drink. Yeah, after all that, and sat on the edge of the bed. I stood by the window, arms crossed, silent. Then I said it. Liam, do you understand what you just did? He looked at me, and I swear, something shifted in his face. The softness, the guilt, it vanished. And he said, "You're really gonna start this now." Start what? I blinked. I thought maybe I'd misheard him. You lost everything, I said. Everything we worked for. All our savings. Our future. And that's when he exploded. He stood up fast, like jump scene in a horror movie, fast, and yelled, "Stop. Just stop. I don't need a Fing lecture right now." I froze. He came closer. You think I don't feel bad? You think I wanted this to happen? Huh? His eyes were wild, his voice sharp and spitting. I was trying to win for us. I was trying to make things better. Then he pointed at me. You're the one who jinxed it. You and your constant worrying and your stupid energy. I stepped back. What are you even saying? You don't get it. You never get it. You just stand there, with your budgeting and your little notes, and act like you know everything. I just wanted you to be honest. Honest? You don't even know what it's like to have pressure on you. And then he slapped me, not hard enough to knock me over, but hard enough that I felt it burn. Hard enough that my jaw jerked sideways. Hard enough that I dropped my phone. And everything inside me went quiet. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just shut down. He looked just as shocked as I did. Maybe more. He opened his mouth, probably to apologize or backpedal. I don't even know, but I held up my hand. "Don't," I whispered. "Don't say anything." He sat back down, breathing heavy, rubbing his face like he was the one hurting. And I just stood there, staring at the man I had married 4 days ago. 4 days. That's how long it took for the honeymoon to end. He muttered again, said something about how I was blowing this out of proportion, that I was dramatizing the situation, that I was poking at him when he was already down. But you know what I remember the most? He never said sorry. Not once. Not for the money. Not for the slap. Not for the screaming. Not for blaming me for his reckless, pathetic choices. Just excuses. Excuses and deflection and anger. Anger at me for being the mirror. For showing him exactly who he was in that moment. And what shook me the most wasn't the slap. It was that he couldn't admit he was wrong. It was the way he refused to sit in the truth, refused to say the words, "I've asterisk it up," refused to own even an ounce of what he'd done. That night wasn't just about losing money. It was about losing the man I thought I knew. Because that version of him, the charming, funny, spontaneous guy who held my hand through life, he was gone. And in his place was this bitter, blame-filled, mean stranger who saw me as a threat instead of a partner. I kept thinking, this can't be him. This can't be real. He just snapped. He'll calm down. He'll come to his senses. But he didn't. I slept on the little couch that night. Didn't even take off my clothes. I just curled up in a ball with my arms around myself and stared at the carpet until the sun came up. He didn't check on me, didn't ask if I was okay. He just snored like nothing happened. I remember watching the light change in the room and thinking, how did we go from vows to violence in less than a week? We checked out in silence. I had to call my sister to wire me money so we could get a cab to the airport. We had no money left on our cards. 0. He didn't say thank you. didn't even make the call himself. He just sat there in the lobby like a statue, scrolling through his phone like nothing mattered. And I wanted to scream, to shake him, to cry, yell, run anything. But I didn't, because I was numb. Too tired, too broken, too ashamed. People at the airport probably thought we were just another exhausted couple flying home after a big trip. They didn't see the bruise under my cheekbone. They didn't hear the silence between us, the cold, dead silence that said everything words couldn't. We didn't sit next to each other on the plane. He said he needed space. Space. Right. He had all the space in the world. The whole flight. I stared out the window and tried to remember every warning sign I had ignored, every little moment that felt off, but I had brushed aside. And suddenly, they all came back. The forgotten wallets, the loans he never paid back, the sketchy behavior when it came to money, the weird mood swings. But this was something else. This wasn't irresponsibility. This was dangerous. This was cruel. And that night in the hotel, that look in his eyes, I don't think I'll ever forget it. When we finally landed, I stepped off that plane, feeling like I had aged a decade. And not in the wise, I've grown from this kind of way. In the, I've just watched my life burn down in slow motion kind of way. We didn't even speak at baggage claim. He walked ahead of me like I didn't exist, didn't even help me carry my bag. And for a second, I actually felt guilty. Can you believe that? I felt like I had done something wrong. Because that's what people like him do. They make you doubt your own anger. They twist the mirror so you only see your flaws. They chip away at your reality until you think silence is safer than truth. Heading back home, newlyweds and completely broke. It didn't feel like things could get worse. But the worst was still coming. We got back home on a Tuesday. It was raining. And not the romantic, soft movie rain. No, it was that cold, sideways, angry kind of rain. The kind that makes your clothes stick to your body and your soul feel heavier than usual. I unlocked the door to our apartment and stepped inside. Everything was exactly how we'd left it. Shoes by the door, dishes in the sink, the framed photo of us from 2 summers ago, smiling in front of a waterfall, fake smiles I now couldn't look at. I put down my bag and just stood there, soaked, tired, broken. And I remember thinking, how the hell did I end up here? For the first few days, I didn't talk to anyone. Not my family, not my friends, not even him. We moved around the apartment like ghosts, not speaking, not touching. He acted like nothing had happened. Watched TV, made toast, scrolled on his phone. Meanwhile, I couldn't even look in the mirror, because all I saw was shame. I thought about leaving. God knows I did. But then came the voices. You can't just leave. You're married. What will people say? You've been together forever. You just got back from your honeymoon. You look crazy, dramatic, overreacting. And the worst one? But he's so nice. Because that's what everyone thought about Liam. He was the golden boy, the charming one. Funny, warm, helpful, polite. The guy who helped your mom carry groceries and made everyone laugh at dinner parties. No one would believe me. Not a soul. Because Liam had spent years building the perfect mask, and I was the only one who had seen it slip. Just for one night. But once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. That image of him red-faced, yelling, blaming me, slapping me in a luxury hotel suite. It haunted me. I started having these flashes. When he'd say something simple like, "I'm going out to the store," my mind would flick back to the roulette wheel, to the lies, to the rage in his eyes. And I knew that I hadn't even scratched the surface. So one morning, I woke up early, waited for him to leave. He said he had a meeting, some vague client thing. Sure, Liam, sure. As soon as the door closed, I pulled out my laptop, and I started digging. Bank statements, old emails, shared documents, anything. At first, it was just curiosity, but soon it turned into something else. Obsession, fear, determination. Because the more I looked, the more things didn't add up. For one, his income. He had always said he was freelancing. That work came in waves, but when I checked the bank deposits from clients, I saw almost nothing. Just a couple of small payments spread out over months. Barely enough to cover gas, let alone rent. So I went further. I dug through tax records, old PDFs stored on our cloud, receipts, invoices. And that's when it hit me. Liam had been unemployed for almost 2 years. 2 full years. No job, no real clients, no income. I felt sick, because suddenly all those days go to work made no sense. The button-up shirts, the packed lunches, the stressful meetings, the fake calls in the hallway. It was all a performance. But if he wasn't working, where the hell was he going? I didn't have time to process that, because as I kept digging, I found something worse. In a shared folder on his computer labeled insurance docs, something I normally wouldn't even open, there were scans of IDs. Not just his, not mine. His mother's, and his grandmother's, and not just IDs. Loan applications, contracts, signatures, all with their names. And not one of them looked right. I stared at the screen, heart pounding as I compared the signatures. And then I knew. He forged them. He was taking out loans, in his own mother's name, and his grandmother's. Hundreds of dollars, sometimes thousands, small amounts here and there, just enough not to raise alarm bells. The documents were dated, signed, scanned all tucked neatly in folders like a psychopath keeping trophies. I sat back in the chair, hands shaking, mouth dry, and I said it out loud. "What the fare you, Liam?" And suddenly, it all clicked. That client who always canceled last minute never existed. The new shoes he bought but claimed were on sale, bought with borrowed money. The time his mom seemed weird on the phone and said, "We'll talk later." She knew something. She just didn't want to say it. And me? I was the idiot playing house with a con artist. I didn't cry that time. I think I had passed the crying stage. I was in the cold rage stage now. And I told myself, this isn't over. I'm not letting this go. You lied to me. You hit me. You stole from me. You humiliated me. And now? Now I wanted the truth. All of it. Even if it burned me alive. That night, he came home like usual, kissed my cheek, said dinner smelled good, asked how my day was, like nothing was wrong, like he wasn't a fraud, a liar, a thief. And I looked at him, really looked at him and thought, you don't even flinch. You don't even blink. You know how terrifying that is? To live with someone who can lie to your face and still ask for extra mashed potatoes? So I kept digging. Every day. While he was at work, I became a detective. And with every file, every folder, every hidden document, I found something worse. But the one thing I couldn't stop thinking was, if he hasn't worked in 2 years, where the hell has he been going every morning? And that's what I'm about to find out. But nothing could have prepared me for the answer. I had to know. I couldn't live in that apartment another day cooking his dinner, folding his socks, not knowing the truth. So I followed him. Yeah, I did. I waited until he left that morning. He kissed me on the forehead, said he had a meeting uptown with a potential client. I smiled. Then, 10 minutes later, I grabbed my coat, my phone, and followed him in an Uber 2 blocks behind. I didn't know what I expected to find. Maybe a cafe where he just sat alone all day. Maybe a job interview he was too ashamed to admit he'd lost. But what I did find? I swear I almost dropped my phone. He wasn't going to a job, or a coffee shop, or a meeting. He was going to a house. A nice house. A very nice house in one of those rich, quiet neighborhoods where everyone's yard looks like it's been vacuumed. I stayed across the street, pulled up my hoodie, watched, and then she opened the door. Not a young girl, not some Instagram model or co-worker or secret ex. No, she was a woman, easily in her 50s, elegant, polished, expensive-looking, wearing a silk robe and holding a glass of wine like it was normal to do that before noon. She kissed him on the mouth. On the mouth. And then she pulled him inside. I froze. I was expecting lies. I was expecting pain. But this was unhinged. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures, hands shaking, zooming in, capturing every angle, because I knew no one would believe me. Not without proof. Liam was too good at the act, too charming, too well-rehearsed. Everyone loved him, everyone. And if I dared to say, hey, my husband has been secretly seeing an older woman while pretending to go to work, they'd laugh me out of the room. So I kept filming. Kept taking photos. Her, him, the house number, the car in the driveway. My heart was in my throat. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run across the street and throw a rock through her window. But I didn't. I waited. I waited 3 hours. And then he left. I followed him again. You'd think the story ends there, right? Like, boom, he's cheating, she's done, time to move on. But no, because Liam wasn't just cheating. Liam was a professional monster. Because guess where he went next? A goddamn casino. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Who does that? Who goes to a casino after cheating? After lying? After draining every account you ever had with your wife? Liam, that's who. I followed him inside. Not too close, I had a hat on. Kept my face turned. And there he was. Sitting at a blackjack table, drinking whiskey, laughing with the dealer like it was his birthday. He looked relaxed, happy even, like nothing was wrong, like his life wasn't built on a mountain of deceit and fake IDs and broken people. And in that moment, something inside me just snapped. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want an apology. I wanted out. I wanted to disappear from his life so fast it would make his head spin. But I wasn't leaving empty-handed. No. I was leaving with proof. Photos, screenshots, contracts, signatures, loan records, messages. Everything. I went home that night like a machine. I printed the photos. All of them. The ones of him kissing that woman. The ones of the casino. Screenshots of his bank records. The fake signatures. The falsified tax forms. I put them in a folder. Then I packed my bag. Just the essentials: clothes, laptop, charger, toothbrush. No drama, no notes, no teary messages. But before I walked out the door, I took that folder, opened it, and spread every single page across the living room floor. Right in front of the couch, right where he liked to sit and watch TV like nothing was wrong. So he'd see it the second he walked in. And then I left. I didn't even take my wedding ring off. I just left it on the kitchen counter, next to the empty mason jar, where we used to keep our life money. And I walked out. I went straight to my friend Laura's place. I hadn't told anyone what had happened until that moment. She opened the door, saw my face, and just pulled me into a hug. I broke down. Right there, in her hallway. I told her everything, and she didn't say anything for a long time. But when I finally stopped crying, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "I'm so sorry." And then, "There's something I need to tell you." At first, I thought she was just going to give me advice. Something like, "You're so brave," or "He's not worth it." But no, she took a deep breath and said, "Some of us knew." I blinked. What? About the gambling, the lies, the older woman. Not all the details, but we knew something was off. I felt like someone poured cold water over me. "You knew? You knew?" She nodded. Not for sure, but there were rumors, whispers. People saw things. But Liam was so good at making everything sound reasonable. He had a story for everything. I stared at her. And no one said anything? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. And that was the moment that hurt the most. More than the slap. More than the money. More than the betrayal. The silence. The people I loved, people I laughed with, vacationed with, trusted. They chose to stay silent. They chose him. Even when they knew. Even when they saw. They looked away. Because Liam was charming, and I was just the wife who made spreadsheets. So, that was the day I let go. Not just of Liam, but of the life I thought I had. The friends, the trust, the illusion. And I swore on my own name that from that day forward, I would never let anyone make me feel small again. Ever. I thought he'd come after me. After seeing the photos spread out all over the floor, the printed emails, the screenshots, the proof, I thought he'd blow up my phone, bang on my door, cry, beg, yell, threaten. Something. But you know what? He didn't say a word. Nothing. Not a single message. Not one call. Not even an "Are you serious?" It was like I had evaporated. Like I never existed. And that terrified me more than any screaming ever could. Because silence from a man like Liam, it doesn't mean peace. It means he's calculating. I slept with one eye open for weeks. I kept my phone on silent but within reach, double-locked the doors, checked the back seat of my car at night. He had seen what I had on him. He knew I knew everything. The fraud, the forgery, the other woman, the gambling, the lies. I thought maybe he'd retaliate, ruin my name, hurt someone I loved. Worse. So I didn't report him. I know. I had everything, but I froze. I told myself it was to protect myself. And maybe that's true. But part of me still wonders if I failed. If I failed the women he tricked, the friends he lied to, the next person who'd walk into his trap. I had nightmares. Not of him hitting me, not of him gambling, but of walking past his next victim on the street and not knowing. Of some other woman, 10 years from now, going through the same hell I did. Or worse. And that's something I carry. I want to ask you, honestly, what do you think? I feel awful. I do. But I was scared. I was scared of what he'd do to me. Scared he'd twist everything. That no one would believe me, even with the proof. What do you think I should have done? Would you have gone to the police? Would you have warned his family? His job? His other woman? I don't know. I still don't know. And maybe I'll never stop asking myself that. But at some point, you have to choose survival over justice. And that's what I did. I packed what was left of my things, deleted every photo of us, burned a few too, if I'm being honest. I moved out of state, took a job I wasn't even qualified for, just because it was far. I changed my number, my email, even my hair. And I started over. It wasn't easy. I cried a lot, slept very little, had trust issues longer than I'd like to admit. But little by little, the world got quieter. My smile came back. I started breathing again. 3 years later, I met someone. He was kind, gentle, 10 years older than me. The first time he asked me on a date, I almost said no. Not because I wasn't interested, but because I was still scared. But I said yes. And over time, I let him in. And now, we have 2 beautiful kids, a house that feels safe, a life that feels real. Sometimes messy, sometimes loud, but never fake, never a lie. I don't think about Liam much anymore. He's just a shadow now. A story I carry. But he doesn't own me. Not anymore. Thank you for this space to tell my story.